Hey, I'm Ryan Orwig, creator of STATMed Learning, and I want to talk briefly in this video about our new NAVLE Boot Camp. The NAVLE Boot Camp combines our STATMed Study Skills course and our STATMed Boards Test-Taking Workshop for our NAVLE clients who are retaking their boards within a few months and want to both redesign how they restudy and how they rebuild their test-taking process. So I recommend this for our NAVLE candidates who need to improve performance significantly, and I can talk to you about that if that's a question of what that means, by addressing both the study-based issues and test-taking based issues. So the boot camp is going to cover our core STATMed study skills for boards restudy, the time management and workflow tools that are part of that sort of suite, that medley of study skills. I don't think you can teach study skills without teaching the time management and workflow pieces. And then also the full boards workshop for test training using the STATMed method and the one-on-one feedback that really helps unlock that and helps you guys learn to show what you know on board exams like the NAVLE. So here's the basic sort of logistical setup for the NAVLE Bootcamp. You can see the cost, and you can see here the dates for the early 2023 NAVLE Bootcamp, February 4th through February 21st, but the back half, 13 through 21, is very flexible where we're scheduling individual meetings. So if you need to get done sooner, you can, and you'll see the schedule, how that all works here. If you're watching this after the February 2023 window, which is entirely possible and likely, then just reach out and ask about upcoming NAVLE Bootcamp dates. Format, it's a live online meetings for small groups and for one-on-ones. There are a section of on-demand videos you have to watch, and there's obviously homework. And you can see here duration, where we've got the 5 meetings, the 11 on-demand videos, 3 live one-on-one meetings, and then all of your homework. The class size will be between 4 and 10 students. And what you would need is a broadband, stable broadband internet connection, and then a reliable internet connected device with webcam and microphone, speakers, all that jazz, okay? So here's the sample schedule. This is what the February 2023 bootcamp will look like. Now, the only thing that's missing here is when we're meeting in those group sessions. Is it going to be 9 to 11 a.m.? Is it going to be 1 p.m. to 4 p.m.? That is to be determined in the coming days once we know what our group looks like. And in the green solo meetings, I mean, there's a lot of flexibility there. That's just this big window of time, days and times, where people can slot in their individual meetings. There are 3 individual meetings spaced out over the span of those green blocks. It all works sort of organically in the flow, very external, explicit, as we are in the boot camp. So the NAVLE Boot Camp essentially merges 2 of our main platforms, the Study Skills course and the Boards Workshop. So look here, I want to show you how the 2 platforms combine to form the boot camp. So this is way more detail than anybody needs to know, but I think why not put it out there? This is the basic structure of the one-on-one Study Skills course, and you can sort of see those on-demand sessions where we sort of revisit the foundations and the intro, the big picture stuff, and then we teach frameworking on this day. That's the key skill. That might take 2 to 3 hours in the group. I think teaching skills in small groups for study skills is better than individually. Sometimes you have to do it individually. I think the test taking is better off taught on its own. Then on day 2 there, we're gonna hit all the key reading skills that we need to hit. And then on meeting 3, we're really debriefing and unpacking and disseminating how we're going to unpack these individual skills into board review material and laying out more management tools working forward. And then the 4th meeting is split, where we sort of tie off the practice and application of the study skills and then also start to roll in our boards workshop, the test taking stuff. Meeting 4 is followed by our first individual meeting, where we're really going to dive into the test taking and give you individualized feedback. Then we have meeting 5, where we're still focusing more on the test taking dissemination here. And then in our second solo meeting, it's going to really focus on a lot of feedback for test taking, followed pretty closely by our final third meeting, meeting 3, where we talk about, yes, some of the test taking, but also bigger picture study skills, study methodology, how all these pieces, these 2 tracks are coming together. And I like this flexibility at the end for the NAVLE Boot Camp, because if you want to be done within 2 or 3 days, you can. If you want to be done by the 13th, 14th, 15th, you can. If you want to get more work done and have solo meeting 2 around the 14th and then solo meeting 3 around the 19th, 20th, 21st, that's fine. It's very elastic and very customizable to fit the needs of each individual student as they're prepping for their NAVLE. And then if you're interested, you can see the kinds of skills that are being disseminated within the boot camp. The study methodology and the time management and planning come from the study skills side, and then the board's test training tools come from the workshop. And for those of us who really want the detailed breakdown, and you can see there's a combination of on-demand videos, group meetings, homework, and individual solo meetings. Now, this is way more than most people are going to want, and you don't need to understand this stuff, but here it is for you. And so who's taking the boot camp within the NAVLE sphere? Who've taken the NAVLE, they've failed the NAVLE maybe once, maybe multiple times. So if you're taking this boot camp, you are concerned with both study-based issues and test-taking based issues. They might say something on the study side like, I'm familiar with most of what I need to know, but I don't know how to find and fix the holes in my knowledge. A lot of restudiers are just globally familiar with what they need to know, but they can't figure out what they concretely know, what they're vaguely familiar with. Familiarity is just enough to frustrate on test day for boards, and then where those holes are, much less than how to find and fix and consolidate them. I believe learning at this level has to start with organization and structure. For a lot of our boards people at this level with something like the NAVLE, it's all swirling around, it's too messy, it's too disorganized. All of the skills that we're teaching study-wise are top-down centric, focusing on structure first, working inward to details, building these things externally and explicitly. Maybe somebody who's taken this would say, sometimes I miss questions because I'm super familiar with it, but I don't know the deeper details. Like my knowledge went 3 levels deep. This was asking for the 4th or 5th level. My knowledge just didn't go there. How can we do this? How can we fix this? The study skills boot camp, the boot camp is going to address this. They might say, it's crazy to admit, but I don't know the best ways to study, especially restudying for boards. I hear this all the time. We don't teach our highly intelligent, highly motivated adult learners in the medical field how to study. The boot camp's going to take care of that. They might say, my study sessions are passive and lack structure, relying too much on rereading or reviewing. Or they might say, like you're punching the time clock. Like I'm putting in the time, why am I not getting the results? Methodology. Methodology is going to unlock that productivity and the outcomes. They might say, I feel like I forget as much as I remember, and it's worse over weeks and months of board study. So it's like I'm doing all this work to fill up this big bucket of water, carrying these heavy buckets of water up the hill, filling it up. But then when I come back and turn around, the bucket is leaky, and I've lost all the water, all the work I've done. We need to implement study methods that are going to give us yield and retention and make it stick, something we can come back to after initial study and not have to restudy it. Instead, build off of it, really get into the active learning with retrieval practice and tying in the knowledge. A lot of our students end up saying something like, I want to make studying feel like high intensity fitness training, like HIIT training, but I don't know the best ways to study to make it all stick over the long haul. Exactly. Back to what I said earlier. We don't know how to study. And again, when you're studying for something like the NAVLE, I feel like it's got to be on when you're on. Start when you're starting, stop when you're stopping. Not 10, 15-minute startup, not sort of meandering around that illusion of productivity. No, we want to be able to have a game plan, see the big battle plan, come in, plug in, work hard, then be done and move on with our lives, and then be able to come back and pick it up where we left off. This is all key to how we need to learn to study for boards, and that's what we're covering in the boot camp, study side-wise. And likewise, like I said, you can't teach study skills without teaching time management, methodology, tools that plug in. So people might say, how do I plan, manage, and track study progress short and long term? I think you need a micromanager and a macromanager. I think you need to figure out how to offload cognitive burden for planning and tracking so that you're not carrying any of that stuff. You might say, yeah, I used to be able to do that in vet school, in undergrad. I don't care. The arena is different. We need different tools so that we can unburden our processor and show what we know. And then there's similar test taking concerns. So if you're doing something like the boot camp, we want to address this thing from the study side and the test taking side. So test taking concerns people would probably be bringing to the table, maybe not all of these, but at least some of them would be, they say, I do great clinically, but I can't translate what I know to the exams. Being a good clinician and a good practitioner is not always the same as being able to perform on the exam, especially learning to use what you know consistently on board style exams. They might say, I always narrow down to 2 and pick the wrong one. Sometimes you narrow down to 2, like I said earlier, your knowledge goes 3 levels deep, it's asking for that 5th level. That's a study side issue. But if you're somebody who's like, I narrowed down to 2 and I'm always kicking away from the right answer, more often than not, I realize I should have gotten it right, but I'm consistently kicking the wrong way, that's getting into the test taking mechanics. This is where reading and thinking intersect. It might have to do with an underlying philosophy you're carrying with you. You might be a binary test taker, meaning you want to know it all. Like, I just feel better when I know it all. Well, you can't always. But if you are a binary test taker, that means you feel like you need to like you like A. I like A, but I don't know everything about A, and I'd like it if I knew more. I don't know about this one thing if that fits. Everything else fits, but I don't know about this one thing, so I'm going to pick B. What do you know about B? Not as much, but I might have missed that day. I might have glazed over that. This is a common pattern. There are many patterns like this. You know, somebody might say, I read the explanation, then realize I should have gotten it right. That is a test-taking miss. And again, those are going to happen every so often, but we've got to really reduce the occurrence of those to be consistently better over the course of a test as long and demanding as the NAVLE. They might say I miss or distort key clues and I don't trust myself. Well, first of all, you got to trust yourself. All you have is what you know. People always talk about their gut. Sometimes I trust my gut, sometimes I don't, or my gut leads me astray. I don't even know what the gut means. So we don't want that to be a part of our factor playing such a heavy role into the way we are navigating questions, working questions, eliminating wrong options, choosing from the best of what's left. I mentioned that binary test-taking mentality. That puts such a low ceiling on your ability to use what you know. We have to learn to be flexible test takers using our partial knowledge, consistently working questions, eliminating wrong options, choosing from the safest of what's left based on the parts of what we know. Easier said than done, but that is exactly how the workshop side of the boot camp is set up. They might say, I'm always rushing to catch up and making unforced errors. Time is a factor, so we have to streamline our test-taking process, cut out excess, and work through it mechanistically. We want to offload the locus of control from our impulses and our desires and our impulsivity and put it on the STATMed system, the blueprint of the system. This test-taking process is very robust. It's very mechanistic. It's not about fixing one person's test-taking and saying, let's see what you're doing right and wrong. If you do this, we're tearing it to the ground and building our system in its place ground up. Bad test-taking is very behavioral. Bad test takers are probably doing the same 2 to 5 mistakes over and over and over again. So we want to put this system in place to help corral and contain and give feedback. So you'll understand the system that we're teaching first before you see the benefit, because you have to engage in targeted self-reflection to grow what's called self-monitoring, your ability to regulate yourself in the run of play. The workshops piece of this, of the boot camp, is going to teach you how to do all this. That back end of the schedule is all this sort of test-taking stuff. And you can be studying using your new study skills while we're adding the new test-taking stuff. I see test-taking and study skills as 2 parallel silos that work together as you're working your way through boards prep. We talk about this on the study side of the boot camp. So you can bring all this stuff on board in a compact fashion so that you can then turn around and go take this thing. And I love attacking it from the study side and the test-taking side. For those of you that really want the comprehensive package, that's what we're doing with something like this. So here are a few frequently asked questions about the NAVLE Boot Camp. What if I just need the test taking? Well, then that's when you go do our boards workshop. You don't even need to mess with all this stuff. If you feel like it's just the test taking and you don't need the study stuff, which is a significant portion of the people that contact us for the NAVLE, then just do the workshop. If I'm sending this to you directly, though, there's a good chance that we've already discussed this and you need both, or you're trying to figure out if you need both. That's fine. Some people might say, what if I just want the study skills? Well, then you could just do the study skills course, but in these big crunch times, we don't have time to run all those one-on-one study skills courses. So that might not be an option given your test deadline if the deadline is close. And then some might ask, what other options do we offer? Well, we have our big STATMed class. It's like a 10-day class, 30 to 40 hours of instruction. It teaches all the same study and time management tools, but it also teaches a few more weird, outside the box, creative ones like visual mapping and memory palaces. We don't do that in the one-on-one study skills course or the boot camp. There's just not enough time for it. But some people like that. But the flip side is, while we do disseminate the architecture of the STATMed test taking process in the STATMed class, it doesn't have all that one-on-one training and feedback stuff that we see on the back end of the boot camp and the boards workshop. That's why the NAVLE Boot Camp is ideally suited for people with a test that's coming up in a few months. Our payment plan's an option. Yes, we appreciate that this is expensive. We ask that you pay a portion of it up front, maybe break it into 3 or 4 payments, pay the first piece up front, then you just tell us when the second, third, fourth payments are going to be due, and we just ask that you pay them when you say you're going to, so I don't have to come looking for it. How often will the boot camp be offered? We're going to look at running this twice a year, once in the winter and once in the late summer for those upcoming NAVLEs. What are the group meeting times? So we don't have those built in yet, as you can see in this current schedule. I'll be locking those in several days before the boot camp starts. We will have that final definitive schedule put out before you would sign up for the boot camp. What happens in the group meetings? Well, this is where we're disseminating, assessing, modeling, giving homework feedback, having group discussions about the situation, about the individual skills, about how the skills go together, about what it's like to take the NAVLE and struggle with the NAVLE. These sessions are confidential and are not recorded and cannot be missed. So when you see those 5 sessions, you have to be there for those, but it is confidential. We do not record those. What are the one-on-one meeting times? Those are flexible for each student. You can see the span of time in the green on these schedules. And it's pretty flexible, okay? And it's just a one-on-one meeting. Once we set that schedule, I just ask that you make sure you meet that time, because my time is limited, right? So you just want to make sure that you make those meeting times. What happens in the one-on-one meetings? Mainly, we're really going over test taking, modeling, and feedback, looking at your individual misses, looking at your growing process, modeling out deep analysis write-ups, assessing your own analysis, and answering questions as you start to put the pieces together. There's always a plan for those, for the most part, and we are moving progressively on a conveyor belt as you are developing your test taking skills. And we can also always use those times to look at and answer and troubleshoot and problem solve your growing study skills as well, which is a nice bonus that is kind of unique to the NAVLE Boot Camp. We're East Coast time zone, so always keep that in mind. It's better to always communicate in East Coast time zone since we're working with people from all over the country. And then what content do we use for homework? We provide content on those first few days of study, and those are more almost like classroom-based, and most of those are human medicine, even though you guys are all NAVLE. It's because those are about quickly giving feedback. That homework is carefully curated to help move each student and client along faster. But then once we get to day 3, day 4, and beyond, you guys are using your own relevant material for your NAVLE, okay? And then all the test taking process training, you'll be using your own question banks for those. How many students in the boot camp? Minimum of 4, so we have to have at least 4 to run the boot camp. And then we'll max it out at 10. And that's going to affect how long some of these days go. What goals should boot camp students have? Well, I want you to be ready at the end of the boot camp to study independently, and then I want you to be able to train independently for the NAVLE using the STATMed process. There might be a small window there where you're going to have to develop more, and we'll talk about what that structure looks like as you continue to sharpen the skills closing learning circuits. But you're not ready to take the test at the end of the boot camp, obviously, but you will start studying during the boot camp. And as we're then layering in the test taking. I know that for most people taking the boot camp, that test is coming soon. So we need to keep moving, and we'll be talking about this all the way through as you're in. You don't really have to worry about any of this because I'll be leading the way. Either me or my colleague David will be leading the way and telling you what to do each step of the way. And then one of the most popular questions is, how much time post-boot camp will I need? I mean, that's variable for each student. 6-8 weeks is definitely the more desired window. Obviously, you could have more. If you get less than 6 weeks, I mean, that's getting kind of tight. But again, it's going to always depend on each student's situation. And I'm happy to talk to everybody about that on their own, okay? So hopefully this gives you a decent idea about the NAVLE Boot Camp. As with all of our platforms and all of our services, I'm always happy to talk to anybody who has any questions about whether STATMed is the right fit for them, and if STATMed is the right fit for them, then which of our platforms. For you, is it the NAVLE Boot Camp? Is it the STATMed Study Skills class? Is it the STATMed Boards Workshop? Or is it the one-on-one study skills course? You might not know. This might give you some information. It might open up more ideas and more questions. I'm always happy to answer any and all questions. There's never any obligation on your part. Thanks for listening to all this, and I hope you found it informative.